everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. Thank you so much for being here. I am so honored to have Hein Pijnnaken coming to us from the Netherlands. Hi, Hein. Thank you for being here.
Hi Beth, thank you for having me. Really honored to be here. So looking forward to this beautiful conversation, I hope.
I can't wait to dive in. I know, I've been following your work for many years in the Microdosing Institute, and I think we've even spoken on the same summit before. And I also love that you are an NLP Master, because that's some of what I've studied and will be studying even deeper. But
Oh,
let's get
nice.
into microdosing, your background. So Hein is the founder of the Microdosing Institute, co-founder of the first European microdosing shop, Microdose.nl, or that's Microdose.nl, a transformational coach, NLP master, and microdosing educator and coach. While growing up in the Netherlands, one of the world's most psychedelic friendly countries in the world, he became familiar with psychedelics in his early college years and has used them as transformative tools ever since. Today, he has over 32 years of experience guiding psychedelic sessions and has immersed himself both theoretically and practically in the topic of microdosing since 2016. He strongly believes that microdosing is an incredible tool for self-development, especially in combination with effective coaching. So, Hein, the Microdosing Institute, your work out there was kind of one of the early people in this kind of wave of microdosing, which is now becoming just a common household word out there. I'd love to hear your whole background, growing up in the Netherlands, the 32 years experience. How did you get into this as a business, and what is it that you used to do before the Microdosing Institute?
Okay. I can remember these beautiful questions. Well, it started off when I was 17. Got into psychedelics due to the books of Carlos Castaneda. Was heavily influenced by these books and intrigued by these plant medicine and herb medicine. And so yeah, because I didn't have a shaman around, I had to be my own shaman. And I started to experiment with high dose journeys, and sort of became a psychonaut. And later I heard that I was one of them. So yeah, one of the first insights I gained was like, okay, everything is connected, and don't take yourself too seriously, and your brain is sort of a tool. So I had these insights, and that gave me, I think, my positive attitude towards life. And yeah, I had a beautiful positive life ever since. Yeah, so 20 years ago I went to Guatemala, had one of my most profound psychedelic experiences on the lake of Atitlan. And yeah, I had a vision. I was drawn to the lake to see the sunrise with a boat. So I borrowed a Mayan fishing boat, and then I had sort of a vision that I had to bring people together and sort of like building community. But yeah, it was 20 years ago, so I totally did not know what I had to do with that. So I almost forgot it. 3 weeks later, I came back home, went into a bookshop, found a DVD, and there was the same picture of a same Mayan boat on that DVD. So I was checking that out. I thought I will buy it. So I was checking it out, and there was a shaman, or shaman, I pronounce it in English. Um, and he was bringing people together, like people from shamans from Middle and South America, to talk about 2012 and about the end of the world, and about that people are destroying the world and environment and those kind of things. So he was bringing people together, and then he did a sacrifice, and I was looking at that video, and I was like, hey, this is exactly the same lake I was on 3 weeks ago, having that vision. And he was doing an offer with smudging or incense. And so yeah, it was sort of like I saw myself sitting there, and it was such sort of a coincidence, and it struck me really. And of course, sort of a coincidence, you can say that. And I tended to forget that whole that whole experience. But it was really getting into me. And then in 2016, when one of my best friends, he stepped out of life because he had cluster headaches. But we did high dose journeys with mushrooms like over 15 years to abort his attacks, and it helped him really well. But with high dose journeys, it was hard to plan. So sometimes he was too late, and yeah, with work and children, he it was hard to plan a high dose journey when he felt it coming. So a lot of time he was too late, and got into isolation and couldn't take it anymore. Decided to to step out of life. That struck me, of course. But on the other hand, it gave me sort of the strength to check out all the psychedelic research, and also came across the Cluster Busters. That is an organization that does all kinds of studies, and is exploring alternatives for people with cluster headaches. And then I stumbled upon microdosing, and with the work of James Fadiman. And then I thought, could that be sort of a preventive medicine for these people? Because, like, although it's illegal in almost every country, these mushrooms don't know they are illegal, and they grow everywhere. And for if there's one group that for 80% of people with cluster headaches, it can alleviate their cluster headaches, or their intensity of the cluster headaches, or the frequency. And so, yeah, I wanted to find out, but because I don't have cluster headaches, I thought, okay, let's try it out for myself first, because I was very skeptical, because after 32 years of taking high doses, and really experienced the potential healing power of that, also guiding a lot of people with high dose journeys. I thought, like, if I have to believe the media back in 2016 already, then there were like 26 benefits or so. So that it was sort of a miracle cure or so. And I was like, okay, that can be the case. And I still don't believe that. It's a very good tool. It's an aid, but it's not a quick fix and not a solution to your problems. But although I was very skeptic, it also gave me the soberness to look at it as objective as possible. Uh, and So after 3 weeks, I really noticed a sort of a micro shift, or sort of an inner revolution within myself, that all these insights I gained with high dose journeys, I sometimes I didn't integrate them as much as I would. So it really helped me to integrate it, because you're microdosing during your daily routine. And maybe it's good to explain what microdosing is to the audience, because maybe some people don't know what it is. So taking a microdose, or microdosing, is the practice of taking a very small amount of a classic psychedelic, like psilocybin containing mushrooms or truffles, or LSD, or mescaline containing cacti, like San Pedro or peyote, or maybe ayahuasca. Sometimes they also microdose with that, and you're doing that with on a certain protocol, for a certain period of time, to gain like a better mood, or to improve your mental well-being, and quality of life. So that is, in short, the definition of microdosing. And but yeah, the first take the first substance I took, it was such a tiny amount, and I still could find effects and feel effects, that I was quite amazed, and thought, let's claim all the domain names that they are, like microdosing.nl, all these things. And thought, okay, I have to build a website on it. And then I saw a documentary of Nick Cave, and then it struck me, because I had a flashback of that vision I had that 20 years ago, to bring people together. And then I thought, okay, this will be my mission, sort of. And later I came in contact with Jim Fadiman. I emailed him, and I said, hey, there's the first microdosing event in Amsterdam. 80 people are coming there. We're going to do some research. We invited University of Leiden and Amsterdam. and they did small tests. And that was also the first microdosing study that was published back in 2018, but we did the study in 2017, 16. And then Jim Fetterman and I became sort of friends on email and on Zoom, of course, because he lives in the States and I live in Holland. And inspired by his work actually to do search instead of research, but just gathering anecdotal stories, because citizen science sometimes is criticized, but I think it's a very good way to to gather information on why people are microdosing, what microdosing is, what the risks are, what the benefits are, and if it can alleviate cluster headaches. But I soon came to find out that more other people are microdosing, not only for that, but also for ADHD, for burnout, depressive states, and of course, the biggest group is people that microdose for personal development. Um, so that's how it started, sort of. Yeah.
Love it. Wow, what a story. I love all the synchronicities, with the boat and your experience and the DVD. When I started microdosing, I think the first year I started playing around with microdosing was probably 2014 or so. Because again, I'm like you, I've been working with psychedelics since I was quite young, and I grew up in California, which it was just everywhere. So that's I always blame it on California. But I started noticing similar synchronicities and the awareness of things connecting together in a different way. That although I had worked with high dose medicine and worked with a lot of other medicines over the years, for some reason, microdosing seemed to make it so obvious. I'm just curious, have you ever researched this, or what is your take on why people might experience so many of these synchronistic events, or
Mm.
connecting the dots together with microdosing versus without? Do you know what really causes it?
I think psychedelics in general are like a very good tool to gain insights and integrate them and observe your patterns and saving energy, or like if you live more from your intuition and your core, then you're making healthier choices and making better choices. So when you're get rid of these blockades, then you're also resonating on a higher frequency and more aware of these synchronicities, I think, and you're more open to it. So I think that I don't think that if you microdose that you experience more synchronicity, but it really helps to do these things that I just told, and that helps really to be more aware and more awake, and more open to synchronicity. Because I notice when my energy is very low, I also notice that I eat not so healthy. I'm becoming more unaware, or more like and then also I don't have that synchronicity that's so much. So I think it connects you with this synchronicity, and connects you with your intention, and
Yeah.
how do
No,
you
it's
think
always
about that?
yeah.
How do you see it? Like also, yeah.
Yeah, I see it more like because when I started noticing it many years ago, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, plus, like you said, I was also working with other psychedelics. I also had a daily meditation practice. I mean, I do a lot of what I call the daily integration. I have healers, I have a therapist, I do somatic work. So I think it's more just the presence, the awareness, like a shift in perception. But I do know, I always say, like, my first psychedelic experience when I was 14 years old, the one thing that came out of it was the knowing that our brains, our minds, our worlds are so much more powerful than we were taught. And especially if you've had a high dose experience,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you make sense out of it? And I remember my first experience was acid, and there I
Hmm.
am thinking, like, this tiny little thing can make me see this, can make me experience this. Wow, there's so much more to our mind that we don't know about, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah. Yeah. And what I wanted to add about synchronicity. How do you see it? Like, okay, for me, it's only sort of a proof that I'm on the right path. It
Yeah.
feels like I'm walking on the path I need to be walking or so.
Yeah.
So the more you walk on your path with heart, so follow your heart. That's something I had from the book from Carla Castaneda. So only follow a path with heart. That yeah, when I practice that more and more, then I came to find out that more synchronicity. And I'm not um, making whole stories out of it. I just think, okay, I'm on the right path. Sort of
Hmm.
like guiding flags or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it the golden nuggets, you know.
Yeah.
But the human mind just always, it's this internal constant fight with like the ego and what we should be doing and what we think is right, and even though we don't know that's right. But yeah, I believe it really is, whatever we want to call it, higher self, God, soul, universe, they're kind of all this one and the same on some level, maybe spirit or your own higher self, but there's this guidance coming through.
Yeah.
And if I always tell people just experiment and just see like what would happen if you just followed all those golden nuggets and saw where they led you to. And usually it leads to something
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but this is my next question is, so there's a lot of people over the last few years that have gotten into, let's say, microdosing coaching. And I know because I've had clients that are microdose coaches or people that are weaving microdosing into, let's say, their other healing work or, other coaching or even health and wellness or weight loss, trauma healing. I mean, I've seen everything.
Hmm.
But sometimes I see people, like just saying like, hey, join my microdosing program. Do people need guidance? And if so, why? Because I've even wondered about this. I've always done intuitive microdosing, which is not at all following any protocol whatsoever, which is not the thought of, like the Fadiman and or Stamets protocols and Stamets stack. But yeah, what are your views on having microdosing guidance versus just doing it kind of a free for all on your own?
Yeah. Well, intuitive protocol is also a protocol, I think. And you see that a lot of people that follow the Microdosing Institute protocol, that's 1 day on, 1 day off, every other day, or the Fadiman protocol, the Stamets protocol, they after that cycle, they start to use it, work with it more intuitively. And I think that's a great thing. It also proves that it's sort of not addictive because when you see hey, all these benefits, then you think maybe you're gonna take it more or you want to take it every day. Well, okay, it builds up tolerance very quick. So if you do it every day, you will be yeah ending the whole strength of the microdosing. But I think you can microdose really well on your own. But it all depends on the tools you have in your backpack. If you have like you can play your own therapist, let's say, or your own coach, then it's totally fine to microdose on your own. Self exploration is a really great way. The only thing is that, like, also without microdosing, some people have the need to, or maybe can use, learn some tools from a coach or a therapist. So yeah, and with my background of NLP, I started to notice like, okay, some people they don't associate that much in their body or if you do a practice or a technique, an NLP technique, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, then some people, yeah, they can't associate so much. And microdosing really helps you. Like I always say that microdosing has two effects actually. You feel more in the present moment and you feel more connected to yourself and your surrounding and nature. And these two effects can lead to all kind of benefits. And for some people, it's more creativity, and other people, it's a decrease in depression. It all depends on what reason you take it and what you need in life. So yeah, some people really, if they want to get the most out of the microdosing experience, then a coaching program could be really beneficial for them also to get started. Like we have a 6 week coaching program, we have one-on-one coaching that all started because people had questions. We had a coaching background with our team and thought, okay, let's guide them through their microdosing journey. We don't treat people with microdosing. That's still not official, but we guide them, and they are microdosing on their own. And if you give people the tools and some tips and tricks, and a realistic viewpoint, I think that's most important, because some people have really high expectations, and I think it all depends on in what phase of your process you are. So with coaching, we try to move people to a realistic viewpoint, and to the point where they are most vulnerable and in a receivable state. And then microdosing is really a good tool for that, as long as they understand that they are the main character in the story. So that is where our 6 week program is based on, and also group therapy or group sessions. It's well known that that really helps also. So apart from the whole microdosing, the whole program is based on like saving your energy bucket, setting intentions, calibrating. We are also doing that, and that's for people who are have already microdosed. Is a very interesting one, because some people think, oh, I know my sweet spot, and but if, in 2 weeks, in the first 2 weeks, when we calibrate how much you take, then sometimes you take like 2% of what you normally take, and then also a little bit more than what you normally take. So you really feel the difference. And most people end up actually taking less than they normally did, because once you know the effect of that microdose, you started to recognize it. You don't need that much to really feel it all the time. That's a discussion that everybody has a lot of time on. Oh, for a microdose, you can't feel it. I had a discussion with Jim Fadiman around that, and yeah, he chose the word subperceptual, but he said that was the Fadiman mistake, because he didn't know a word for no psychedelic effects whatsoever. So he mentioned subperceptual, but it's sort of subhallucinogenic. That was a better word actually for that. So yeah, it can help to end the answer is it can help and support you doing a program, but yeah, it all
Yes.
depends on what you want.
I'm a very big fan of having support and guidance through anything, especially for people who are working with microdosing for, healing or depression or anxiety or going through major life changes. I mean, this is where most of this podcast is about integration, having tools and people and guidance and community, like you mentioned, groups. Because I think, back, I guess it was maybe pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, when microdosing really just like, blew up, and everybody had this kind of, because I know I was getting a lot of inquiries myself, like, where can I get mushrooms? And I heard these will fix all my problems, kind of this attitude of like, well, the media is making it sound like this will cure my depression. Do you have any?
Yeah.
I got this a lot. And I kept saying to people, I'm like, it's not just the medicine. You have to have the guidance, the intention, the tools, work with someone for whatever it is you're going through. And I think this is why, this kind of world of microdosing has been shifting. And then there are more people offering kind of community centered or coaching centered type programs. But let me ask you about where microdosing has been going, because it was kind of this huge frenzy in 19, 20, 21. I pretty much everybody I know still microdoses, so it's not going anywhere. To me, it's
Yeah.
just kind of woven into our society now, or at least the people I hang out with. But and there's more and more people also offering it. There's people now, I know, I'm sure you've heard these stories, just offering it kind of blatantly out there on the internet, even if it technically is still legal here in the US. But where do you think microdosing is going to go over the next 5 or 10 years? Like, is this going to just be, you know, like in everybody's kind of cabinet, it's part of life? Is it getting people off of SSRIs? Like, what do you see happening in the trend of microdosing?
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, in your surroundings, everybody's doing it, and we always have to be careful, thinking that because we are such sort of in the psychedelic bubble, that sometimes I feel like everybody is doing it. Jesus, what a mainstream thing it is, and then you zap on your television and you see stupid programs or whatever, and you think, oh no, there are also a lot of people are not really don't know what psychedelics is. And one of my main reasons to start Microdosing Institute back in 2016, we started writing in 2017. We launched our website and community was to reintegrate the use of psychedelics into the general culture. It's one of the missions maps, and Beckley Foundation also has. And I was like, okay, microdosing is really sort of my hidden agenda because it's sort of a Trojan horse that you can slowly drive into the society, and people are thinking, it's sort of a food supplement, homeopathic. What is it? You don't get a bad trip. It's such a tiny amount. People are not afraid of it. So I thought it's a really good a way to really learn in a safe way the use of psychedelics, because like if we look back in the 60s, then people didn't really know what they were doing. They were on a festival taking acid like 400 micrograms and didn't know what they were taking. Yeah, of course you have incidents now then. So and we didn't, at least in Holland, all these organizations that were busy with psychedelics and research projects, they know like, okay, we can't end up and making the same mistakes as this in the 60s, like being sort of a counterculture. So I think it's best to integrate and be the culture instead of, if you want to make a change at least. If you don't, then don't. But yeah, if you want to make a difference and a change and take it to a higher level and integrate it, then you have to be the culture and make it accessible and that people understand it. So that's why we also build a bridge to all these researchers, because we didn't want to end up that microdosing just was a sort of an excuse to do drugs you do during the day. But yeah, we wanted to really participate and assist all these researchers that are out there that really want to work with our community, and we could motivate our community to participate in this research. And so yeah, where does it go? Yeah, I'm sometimes a little bit concerned about how some people profile themselves and sell it as a sort of a solution to your problem, or a sort of a candy. In the States, you are seeing that a lot, that you see gummies and those kind of things. In Holland, it is forbidden to, like magic truffles, psilocybin containing truffles are legal in Holland, but we can't process them. So we can't dry them, we can't capsule them, we can only sell them fresh. But I think it's a good thing, because then you build up a relationship with that earth medicine. So you have to taste it, you know what it is, you see what it is, instead of just a gummy and take it and go by your day. So sometimes I'm a little bit concerned about that, but yeah, in our 6 week programs, we are also teaching them with the history of psilocybin containing mushrooms, and with people from that has a link to Oaxaca and the Mazatec Native Americans. Um, yeah, that I think it's really important to acknowledge and respect our ancestors. And I think it resonates with you also. But yeah, it's really important, because you see now companies that even don't mention James Fadiman, for instance. And although he's not the discoverer, because one anthropologist said to him, don't you think indigenous tribes and people took also tiny amounts? And although it's not written and they didn't call it microdosing, they did use very tiny amounts also for hunting and for all kinds of medicinal purposes. So yeah, we also teach that, and also teach people that this earth medicine and plant medicine like ayahuasca, that they have a spirit, they have an intelligence, they have been around for millions of years, and I think they have something to tell us. And I don't want to preach too much, but I think they teach us to be more connected with nature, and maybe take care of nature a little bit better than we're doing now right now. And so I hope that people that enter the psychedelic scene and like companies that are going on the stock market and sort of maybe take a little bit caution and because it's not a candy that you're selling. It's a very powerful substance and mostly they have their own agenda also. So if you abuse psychedelics, then they will teach you a lesson. That's for sure. And then you can say, I had a bad trip. Yeah, of course, that can happen. And a bad trip doesn't have to be negative. It can also be really profound and help you out. So to answer your question about within 5 years, I hope that people that now think that it's going to be $1 million business industry maybe think, these ceremonies and these we had it in Holland also, some retreat centers, and they got bankrupt because they thought, let's make a lot of money out of it, and so they left Holland again because I think it's yeah, you do that work because you love it and you want to facilitate people and you want to help people and do it in a safe way. But you're not going to be rich out of it. Yeah, but we'll see what happens. I hope it filters itself out. And
That's what I always say.
yeah,
I always say it's gonna the bad players are maybe gonna weed itself out, or people won't take it anymore, or it'll backfire in their face, or like I kind of agree. I mean, I definitely agree with you when it's like, well, these plants have their own spirit and their own agenda, and if you have this general disrespect, I think it's going to backfire. Hopefully, we can figure out the respect from day one a little earlier. But I also very much agree with you. I've talked about this before on this podcast about being connected to the spirit of this plant to also know where it's grown, how it's grown, who grew it, do they align with your values, like what kind of
yeah,
energy. And people have argued against this. I find it really interesting. There's people out there's literally people out there preaching like, oh, it doesn't matter where they're from, it just matters the intention. I'm like, well, it's a living spirit. But I'm curious, what are your views on that? I'm sure you must align with me a little on that.
yeah. I'm totally aligned with that. That's why I'm also really find it important to know the story behind these products, for instance. So in 2018 we were doing this totally voluntarily and wanted to find, okay, what are we doing if we want to keep up with it, building community and building bridges to researchers and maybe therapists and building programs, then we need sort of money to do that. But I don't want it to have like banners all over the place on the website. I didn't want to be dependent on investors or sponsors or donators or whatever, because donators didn't donate. So I thought, okay, I can say, hey, you can buy these truffles over there, but I can also sell them myself. So that is why I got closely involved in Microdose.nl. And so we decided to be totally independent whatsoever and build a web shop or an online shop and only with products that I knew the people behind them. So I can sell cacao, for instance, but if it's from Congo and there's child abuse and there's child labor and whatever, I don't want to sell it. So I want to sell only when it comes from the farmer itself. So I stumbled upon a guy who has his own story. He's also alone. He knows it. He goes to Guatemala and harvest them, help harvest it itself. So these kind of stories I find really important. That's why we have a podcast around that, for instance. Same as the truffle farmer. He's 82 years old. He's Dutch, and he has been being market leader in growing mushrooms. And after 2009, mushrooms became illegal in Holland. But he was the first guy who did that over 32 years here in Holland. So when I was very young, I bought it from a shop, of course, but it came from him. And then later on, he had the first microdosing product as sort of like a paracetamol strip with these truffles with 1 gram. And we came in contact, and then like his story is so amazing. He had all the court cases and all the lawsuits and all these things, and he's still going strong. microdosing every other day, and really, really beautiful stories. And same with medicinal mushrooms, like where it's from, how is it made, why does that person make it? And so, yeah, we ended up with interviewing all these people, and just to give our community sort of the most reliable products you can have. And of course, yeah, that also is with research chemicals or with medicinal mushrooms, or yeah, with other substances like the
Yeah.
cacti and so. Yeah.
That's so good. I really appreciate that you really hold this sacred and are educating people on this. Because like you said, it's interesting when I went to psychedelic science this year, and it was the first time I had heard about like MDMA gummies and 2CB pens and DMT. I'd heard about DMT pens, and there were just people everywhere selling like mushroom gummies, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's why not the mushroom? I mean, it doesn't taste that bad for you to
Hmm.
not be able to take a little bit. I mean, it doesn't resonate with me on my path, but like
Yeah.
you said, there's a lot of people disconnected to it and not even really questioning where it's from and how it's processed. And I have actually seen some people having negative experiences, and the one thing I always get concerned about is especially where I grew up in California or these certain places around the US or probably other parts of the world where it comes in, let's say, a chocolate form or a candy form, and a young kid, maybe 14 years old, is not aware of the dosage. And some of these chocolate bars, because I know I've been given them, a chocolate bar this big could be 5 grams, and chocolate tastes good, and then you eat some more, and then you eat some more, and then all of a sudden you've ingested 5 grams, and maybe it's your first trip. Then what? Like,
Yeah.
I personally, and then the warning labels tends to be small, and even then people don't know what they're doing. It's an interesting world that we're in, and I keep saying, like, we're going to probably hear some of these stories where maybe there was a bad case or people didn't have the guidance or didn't know what they were doing, but we will see. The question I have for you is, there's more and more movements around microdosing. I've interviewed some of these moms on mushrooms, people like this. We're hearing kind of more niches microdosing. I'm wondering if the trend is going to be, or already is, that people who start with microdosing, are they eventually drawn to then do a macrodose or maybe other medicines? Or like, what are you seeing in the trend of microdosing? Let's say the suburban mom, here in America we call them the soccer moms, right? But then do they then start to desire like to go big, or go on a ayahuasca retreat in Peru? Like, what have you heard about this? I'm curious.
Yeah. I think that everybody that starts to or decides to microdose in the end will be interested. Not everybody, but I think a large proportion will be interested in taking a high dose journey. Also because they get familiar, they get acquainted, they are not so anxious anymore, and they find it like, oh, this is actually helping me. This is supporting me in my process, in my personal growth. So yeah, they end up being interested in, and yeah, 2 weeks ago we published a nice documentary. I think maybe it's interesting to see where we build a bridge between with microdosing and macrodosing also, because although we are mostly involved with microdosing, we get a lot of questions like, hey, after that cycle, I would like to do a high dose journey, but do you know a retreat center or a facilitator? So now we ended up in having a network with trusted retreat centers and facilitators, because also there are some bad actors around, and we only want to have, like, if you give, like, say that you give psilocybin therapy and you don't have any therapeutic background, you are misleading very desperate people actually, and vulnerable people, and I don't think that's a good thing. So we try to filter out who is doing a good job or whatever. So, but yeah, the documentary is really nice because I strongly believe that microdosing will play a role in the future when these treatments become legal. These treatments with high dose journeys or psilocybin, become legal for treatment with resistant depression, for instance, and that microdosing can act as an integration tool and aftercare, and like have a reminder of that high dose journey and really help you integrate these insights. But also as a pre, getting to know it. Some people are a little bit afraid of it, so they as a pre-journey use microdosing. So I strongly believe in that combination. That doesn't say we are going to convince everybody to take a high dose journey, because that's not for everybody, and that is why microdosing is so interesting. Because yeah, some people that are very anxious or having mental issues that maybe is not appropriate to take a high dose journey, that can maybe confuse them too much, then microdosing under the guidance of a coach can be really beneficial, maybe.
Yeah, I was actually,
I also want to be careful also to claim things. I think we always have to be cautious around that. Research is needed yeah, really make claims. So we try to, yeah, be in that search modus all the time. But
yeah.
yeah, I think you also notice that there are, yeah, it has been around. You are doing it since 2014, so even longer than me. Um, Although I also have taken a microdose during festivals, whatever. But we didn't call it microdose. We just took a tiny amount just
Yes.
to have a
Yeah.
laugh and then those kind of things, and not taking on a consistent basis. But yeah, we see a lot of positive stories. So yeah, we can argue and discuss like it's a placebo effect, whatever. Yeah, of course it's a placebo effect. It's just yeah, life is a placebo
I know.
effect, and every expectations influences the outcome, and that's also with psychedelics. That's why they came up with set and setting, because if you're taking it in a prison or in nature, then you have a totally different experience. So we knew that in since the 50s. So, but it's more than just a placebo effect, because they in Maastricht University they also measured blood differences and all kinds of different physical effects. So yeah, it's more than just a placebo effect.
Yeah. I love what you say about that, though. I totally agree. I'm like, well, technically everything could turn out this way or that way, depending how you want to enter into it. But
Yeah.
yes, I mean there is science, and actually, when I interviewed James, was it last year? The year I've interviewed him twice. I think I can't even keep
Hmm.
up with it. But off camera, I was telling him how my mother was having dementia symptoms, and
Hmm.
he gave me a kind of a protocol of like, well, try this and put on this music, and it's and even some indigenous people I work with have talked about this with other medicines, like, oh well, maybe you should try this. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah,
But let's
and
let's
now you
yeah.
see, because as I forget, there will be a study in Switzerland around microdosing LSD and dementia. So last year on ICPR, that's a psychedelic conference in Holland, Amanda Fielding from the Beckley Foundation announced it, and I was in tears because she had a presentation where she had a woman who suffered from dementia and couldn't do anything anymore, not talk and those kind of things, and after the intake she could talk, she could connect, she recognized songs, she could sing, and of course because of the old memories, then that's why I think Jim mentioned put on some music. Then this, yeah, and yeah, it sounds logic actually, because with these MRI scans, they see that if you take a high dose journey or a microdose, that these different brain sections start to communicate better and more with each other. So maybe it fires a little bit more, and then yeah. So I'm very excited about that actually also, and yeah, that's why I'm doing this, and that's why like this research is so interesting, and yeah. I hope to
Amazing.
speak to the guy who is doing that research in June, because there's another conference in Holland. So I'm really excited about that.
Be amazing. Yeah, it's funny. I met Amanda in 2015, I think it was. Actually, it's a very long story, but out at her castle in outside
Oh,
of
nice.
in yeah, where was it? Outside of Cambridge area.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her saying this about how she was such a big believer in LSD being this potential cure for, these diseases that we've not known about, like, or not known enough about, Alzheimer's and dementia and all these other brain disorders. And it's like, wow, wait a second, really? LSD? But it makes sense, and it's fascinating that people are starting to research this. I mean, at least back then, she seemed convinced that we're going to find this, eventual cure or cause, to the point where maybe we can actually stop it, because it's incredible. Even within my own family, it's like my stepfather had it, and now
Yeah,
my mom. It's
yeah,
it's so painful to watch too. By the way,
yeah, yeah. And I think we have to notice that it like microdosing LSD, it will not cure dementia. It will slow. It could slow down it,
yeah,
slow down dementia. But what we heard about from anecdotal stories is that for their surroundings or the people that are taking care of people with dementia, it's really a difference. So they are softer. They get more connected. They like some people with dementia can be aggressive or really like offside. So I think because yeah, for the whole people that are surrounded by the people who suffer dementia, it's really important, and that's what I find so amazing to hear. Like, okay, because yeah, the person who has suffers from dementia maybe doesn't realize it that much, but yeah, for the surround, it's really important. And yeah, even also with lion's mane, that also can really maybe benefit or support it in slowing it down. But yeah, still have to find out. So
yeah. Hopefully, there's more and more research with this. I
yeah,
have my mom taking reishi right now.
okay,
We'll see.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it seems to be helping a little bit, but lion's mane maybe is next. But let me
yeah.
ask one last question before we wrap up. I wanted to know, do you feel that there's more room for microdosing coaches out there as a career? More and more people wanting to step into the psychedelic space as part of their life's work, or maybe they're already doing, healing therapy coaching and they want to add in microdosing. Because I've heard people say to me like, "Oh, there's already so many people out there." But what is your take on this? Is there room for more?
Yeah, I think the overall tendency is that there are a lot of retreat centers now, and a lot of people facilitate high dose journeys and microdoses, and you see sort of like the peak is now getting a little bit slowing down, so people have a hard time to fill up their practice. But I think if you look at all the people that are depressed and having burnout and maybe this treatment with MDMA for PTSD and psilocybin for depression. If that becomes a treatment within 3 years, I hope, then there will be people that need to be trained, and facilitators and coaches and therapists that need to take these people and coach them and guide them through this journey. So I think there's room for more people. Yeah, that's why we developed a 10-month facilitator program. We just gathered all the information we got and put it into a program, and it's really hands-on and really for practical because we got more and more people in the fields that are therapists or breath workers or yoga teachers or coaches that want to implement microdosing in their practice. And although it's not rocket science, let's be honest, it's good to have sort of a blueprint or code of ethics, how you profile yourself on the website, for instance, how you also don't claim anything, but maybe also do some research on and how you read these research papers. So we have master classes, for instance, with people that can help you how to read these research papers. And you are talking about microdosing for moms, like Michaela. She is a well-known figure that's also now doing study with Jim Fadiman around microdosing and moms who microdose, and she's doing a master class around that, and like people with ADHD. So we have a master class around how you, if you have a coaching people with ADHD, how to approach that, or trauma informed, or whatever. So it's good to have all these tools, and that's how our facilitator program got to see daylight. And yeah, I think there's room for coach or more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. I always say this. I mean, there's 8 billion human beings on the planet. So many people are suffering. There's someone for everybody, and there's only so many people one person can help too. There
yeah,
is, I mean, you can scale to a high level point, and we're as you've mentioned, this business isn't necessarily about scaling to the multi-millions, like certain retreat centers or programs have tried and didn't go so well. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Only time will tell.
yeah.
But Hein, let's hear, what is coming up in the next, 6 to 12 months for the Microdosing Institute. What do you have going
It's
on? Anything new? Where can people sign up for kind of the next thing coming down?
Yeah, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram, Microdosing Institute, or we have a podcast channel on. It's also called Microdosing Institute on YouTube or Spotify. And yeah, we just want to interview and bring people on the stage that have something to tell, have something to add, and we learn as we go. So we don't have all the truth in us. So yeah, if you're fixating too much on what you know, you're missing out what you don't know. So I think it's really important to keep learning and keep take it to a higher level by bringing people together still. So if you want to follow us, you can also sign up for our newsletter. And yeah, like for instance, the 25th of May, but yeah, maybe that we're gonna celebrate World Microdosing Day because 27 May, Jim Fadiman is his birthday. So a few years ago, we decided to bombard that as World Microdosing Day. But yeah, so we're doing a microdose retreat and just experience together how it is to be in the present moment, to learn people how to be in the flow with the support of a microdose. That's what we're gonna do. And yeah, every 2 months we start a new 6 week program. So if you want to, join us on that, you can hop on every 2 months. Hopefully, normally, so maybe around that. And yeah, hopefully in the end of the year or after holidays, we start with a new facilitator program. Yeah, and we'll see what projects will bring us. And yeah, I'm very excited to yeah be connected to the psychedelic field and yeah follow the how do you call it, the nudges that you said.
The little golden nuggets or
Nuggets, yeah, nuggets,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so good. Well, we'll have the links to your social media, your websites. I think you also send out emails as well, right? I think
Yeah, yeah,
so.
we have
Yeah,
newsletters. Yeah, there were,
perfect.
yeah, that's the newest research that is published, and some papers we are mentioning because we are assisting them or yeah, work with them. So yeah, well, all
Perfect.
kinds of things.
Great. Well, we'll get those links right here in the show notes. Hein, it was so good to get to know you and hear this incredible story and this journey. And thank you so much for the work you're doing for the microdosing world, for the psychedelic space, and for this planet. Because, hey, I know how microdosing has helped me and impacted me. And if I've experienced positive reactions and positive outcomes from it, I hope everybody else can learn from you and learn from your coaches that you've trained. And hopefully we'll see this make the world a better place, one person at a time.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah, and like every story every story that people share with us that can be very valuable for another person. Like for instance, 2 years ago, we came to find out that tinnitus was sometimes their tinnitus increased, and for some people it decreased. So it is worth telling people that it could be a risk, but it could release them for the tinnitus. So these kind of things are so valuable, and then yeah, we do the search and then we share that with these researchers and they do the research. So it's research in motion. It's still in its infancies, But yeah, keep up sharing your story and telling that in your surroundings, because that also helps end the stigma that still surrounds psychedelics sometimes. So
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much.
thank you too, Beth. It was great talking to you.